Well, the Cleveland Browns go undefeated in the 2025 preseason. Let's just hope they have a better year than when they did it in 2017. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, or if you are new here, then please do me a favour and hit that subscribe button. So, the Cleveland Browns have done it. They have gone undefeated in this year's preseason. They nearly blew it at the end, giving up a touchdown to the Rams to lose the lead. But Tyler Huntley came in. I would like to say that he led the drive, but I think the refs led the drive more than anyone. Got quite a few penalties on our side. We're able to get the ball down the field. And then Schmidt finished the game off with a game-winning field goal. If there's any way to win a preseason game, that's certainly one of them. Makes it a bit more entertaining. But just want to talk about this game overall. Of course, what players stood out, and previewing week one as we go forward. With the preseason now officially in the books. But the Browns win this one 19-17. As I mentioned, undefeated in the preseason. I don't think they've given up more than 20 points in the preseason. So pretty impressive stuff out of the defense all preseason long. Fairly impressive stuff out of the offense all preseason long. I mentioned it in my last video. The offense has looked a lot more smooth. Just looks like looks like an NFL offense out there. Whereas last year, even when the starters were out there in the preseason, it was a pretty big indicator of what the season was going to be. They were that bad even in the preseason, even operationally. So much improved from the offense compared to last offseason. We obviously got to see the starters, got to see a dress rehearsal of the starting offense, minus a couple of guys out there. I said in my last video, I didn't expect all the starters to get 25, 30 plays. I didn't expect all the starters to be available to play, like Kevin was saying. That, of course, wasn't the case. We didn't see Joel Bitonio out there, thankfully. We didn't see Myles Garrett, Denzel Ward out there, any of those guys, thankfully. But we did get to obviously see that, the main bones of this offense. And, whilst they were out there, as I said, they ran the operations well. They did go 3 and out on the first drive. But other than that, looks pretty decent. Showed what you want to see. Joe Flacco going 9 for 10, 70 yards and a touchdown. Really nice touchdown to Harold Fannin. So, we got what we wanted to see out of the offense in terms of the dress rehearsal. They didn't look like out of place like they did last year. So that is obviously a positive sign. I mentioned the touchdown to Harold Fannin. As a big Harold Fannin fan, someone that was a big fan of his coming into this draft, someone that, despite what all the haters were trying to criticize him for, someone that I just, people could point out the 40 time, people could point out how he runs duck-footed, people could point out all of this stuff to me. It didn't matter. When I watched this guy play, I was just convinced he was going to be a good NFL player. Of course, this one preseason touchdown doesn't mean that he's going to be a good NFL player, but it was encouraging to see him get his first NFL touchdown. And if he does pan out as I expect that he can, and we're going to see a lot of Harold Fannin even as a rookie with the Browns. Of course, they're going to go to a lot more heavy personnel this year. We're going to see a lot more 12 personnel, so you're going to see both those guys out there. And in the red zone, that's going to be pretty hard for teams to stop when you've got, Harold Fannin and David Njoku in the red zone that both can be, mismatches in the red zone. So, really excited to see how that develops throughout the season, with Fannin and Njoku both out there. And, of course, encouraging to see from Fannin with the touchdown. As I mentioned, Flacco as well. He can still sling it. I think the guy will be able to sling it when he's 60 years old. Truly one of the stronger arms we've seen in the NFL in recent memory. And even at 40, he can still sling it. Nice couple of throws out there, especially on the touchdown to Harold Fannin. Dylan Gabriel, when he came in, really, really impressive stuff. A lot of good throws from Dylan today, especially on the drive, to close out the first half where he went 9 for 11 for all 86 yards of the drive coming from his arm. Which was, of course, capped off with a touchdown to Gage Larvadain. Dylan had 2 drives, 2 scores in this game, 2 long drives. So really impressive stuff out of Dylan. you can nitpick some stuff on the first drive that led to a field goal. Would you have liked to see him run that in? Yes, but he's probably still dealing with that hamstring injury, probably not full 100%. So that probably explains why, fully healthy and not a preseason game, a regular season game, he's probably going to, put his body on the line and try and run that in. He did sail a couple of throws. He did have one hospital ball to, I can't remember who the receiver was now. So, not all perfect, but as you would expect from any third round rookie, you're not expecting Patrick Mahomes out there, of course. But from what we did see from Dillon Gabriel, I was really, really impressed. He continues to show what the Browns coaches and front office raved about him. And, a lot of people have kind of tried to call this front office out, saying, well, where have we seen this? And, I was kind of one of those people that was like, well, you're not really going to see, some of what his strengths are in training camp, things like processing and that, how can we really, evaluate that in training camp? So when he's in a game setting, you can really see the process in there. He just seems to have a knack for moving the chains, and especially on third down, something that he was good at in college and, looks to be carrying with him into the NFL. Really, really impressive stuff from Dillon. He's had a good preseason overall. Certainly made his case to be that rookie, or to that's going to be second on the depth chart, or to be the first rookie up if it does get to those guys. He's definitely made a good case for himself. Keeping on the plus side, Amani Marshall, Pierre Strong, they look decent out there, making their case for that last running back spot. And then Jamari Thrash, who, I think he has locked himself as that wide receiver 3 role. He might push Deontay Johnson off this roster, if we're being honest, and depending obviously what they do with Gage Larvadain, who continues to impress as well. But Jamari Thrash, especially when Dillon Gabriel was in there, looked really good. Continues to impress. Hoping for a kind of step up from last year, his rookie year, and can have a kind of breakout year from Jamari Thrash and establish himself as a legitimate wide receiver in this room. We didn't really see anything from Isaiah Bond, which does make me think, because they had him out there, the first few kind of plays, the first few series with the starters, and then when the starters came out, I would have expected Isaiah Bond to stay in the game and continue to get reps in this game, as they probably want to ramp him up and get him up to speed. But he came off with when the starters came off, so maybe there's a much higher, a much bigger role for Isaiah Bond in this starting offense and in this offense as a whole going forward into this regular season than we might have thought. Because I thought he was going to play quite a lot of this game, and they got him a few series with the starters, get him familiar with the terminology and the verbiage and all of that stuff, and just get him out there. And then as soon as they pulled the starters, they pulled him. They still had guys like Deontay Johnson out there, like Gage Larvadain out there, and he wasn't out there. So that might be an indicator that he is, going to have a much bigger role than maybe some thought. So we'll have to wait and see. Dylan Sampson as well, only had 2 carries in this game. We've not really seen anything from him as a runner this preseason, but he did have a really nice catch and run on third down in this game to move the chains, which is obviously good to see. Someone as hopefully can turn into that third down back and be that kind of more receiving role out of the backfield compared to those other guys. And then on to the not so good, I suppose, with the offense. When Shedeur came in, it did regress quite a bit, and I'm not saying that's because of Shedeur. The whole unit was bad. The offensive line was not great when Shedeur was out there. They did not give him a lot of time at all. Guys weren't getting open, so this is not me trying to put a massive knock on Shedeur Sanders by any means. But whilst everyone else that was out there wasn't very good, so was Shedeur. He wasn't very good in this game in terms of what he was able to do and the chances that he did get. Biggest knock on him in this game was his pocket presence. Really wasn't great. He looked rattled out there. There was a couple of times where, he had the space to step up into the pocket, and instead he just tried to bail, which, of course, is not encouraging to see. Something that has been a knock on him coming out of college is his pocket presence, is his ability to step up in the pocket, something that we saw him do quite well in his preseason debut against Carolina. But in this game, he just seemed to be, pretty rattled out there. He didn't seem to have the confidence to step up into the pocket even when there was space to do so. The body language wasn't great. He looked quite, defeated out there, shall we say. And of course, when finished the game with the Cam Newton towel over the head, not looking too great. So this was not a good performance from Shedeur Sanders. Of course, was not helped by the offensive line that was out there with him. Was not helped by the receivers that were out there with him. This whole unit regressed and was the whole reason that the Rams were able to get back into this game. Because before Shedeur came in and those kind of 3s and 4s came in, the Browns were completely in control of this game. But, once those guys came in, they kind of let the Rams get back into it. Not very encouraging stuff from Shedeur and the rest of those guys out there. I don't think they had one drive where they picked up multiple first downs. Not great stuff. Sacked a few times, Shedeur, not all of them his fault, but, the ball security wasn't great. He fumbled the ball a couple of times out there as well. So, I'm not going to bang on him. This is a 5th round rookie. So, when he played well in the debut, I'm going to give him the credit as a 5th round rookie and, someone that performs really well. Whereas when he doesn't play so well in this game, whilst, yes, I'm obviously going to nitpick it and, talk about where I don't think he played well, I still have the preference that this is a 5th round rookie. This is a guy that's, not got that many reps this offseason. He's been pretty much consistently 4th in the depth chart for most of the offseason. So, you're not expecting him to be completely ready to go out there, but it just wasn't that encouraging to see him, not step up in the pocket, looked like he was rattled out there and just didn't look like his normal confident self. So, is this the last time we see any of the rookies this year? I hope not, because we want to evaluate both of these guys with obviously the Browns having 2 first-round picks next year and likely to go quarterback. It would be nice to see both of these guys in real NFL game settings. But of course, if this is the last that we've seen on them, then not the most encouraging stuff out of Shedeur. So hopefully Shedeur can get more chances and more opportunities to show that this wasn't who he is, but more so just a bad game, which, as I said, it's not. He had a bad game, but that was also because the offensive line and everyone he was out there with was also having a bad game as well. Nobody in that unit played well. Onto the defense, the biggest shining light of this Cleveland Browns team, all off-season, all preseason, going into next year. This year now, shall we say? Not to float my boat or blow smoke up my arse. I'm not someone to try and do that, but I have been talking about this defense since April. I'm sure a lot of people have as well, but it is kind of surprising seeing some people just come around and be like, oh, I think this defense is going to be good. Like, I think I've been pretty much on this train since April, since free agency, since the draft, since the players that we knew were coming back. I was pretty confident that this defense was going to take a step forward than what they did last year and be closer to that 2023 form. And they just continue to prove that to me. They might even be better. Who knows? We'll have to wait and see. But the defense, starting with the defensive line and that front 7, has just been so impressive in preseason. That's without Myles Garrett. That's without any of their, that's without Greg Newsome or Denzel Ward. They've not played at all. So, it's very exciting to imagine what this defense is going to look like when you add those top guys in as well. Carson Schlesinger just continues to impress. He is so good. Andrew Berry had a lot of high praise to say about him on the broadcast. Not heard him talk about many rookies as he talked about Carson Schlesinger. Just truly I want to say special player. I mean, what we have seen so far makes me believe this is a future All-Pro. This is a future Green Dot, holder. This is a future captain. I genuinely have that much confidence in Carson Schlesinger. He just continues to impress. Early on in this game, just completely shot his gap on the linebacker blitz, got to the quarterback, forced the incompletion. Whether it's rushing the passer, whether it's in coverage, whether it's in run stop, he just continues to impress. He is always out there. He's always around the ball. I am so excited to see what Carsten Schlesinger can do in his rookie year. And I said it, I think, a month ago now, after, you know, when we first saw him and when he was impressing early in camp, that, you know, this is someone that could be an under the radar defensive rookie of the year candidate. And I think he just keeps, you know, making a better and better case for that. Really, really excited to see what we get from Carsten Schlesinger this year. Isaiah Maguire and Alex Wright, they had back-to-back big plays early. They continue to impress. They continue to look really exciting on this defensive line and in this edge rotation. And, you know, I'm really impressed with both guys' development, and credit to the Browns coaching staff and credit to that defensive line coaching staff and Jack's the coach, the D-line coach, for, you know, the development of these guys. Both guys that weren't, you know, top picks by any means, that look like really, really solid and really good edge rushers in the NFL, and really excited to see what they can do as they continue their development. And then, you know, finally on the good side, I keep saying it and I'm going to keep saying it again, Aiden fucking Huntington. I mean, wow. I mean, I don't want to be hyperbolic, but I'm not entirely sure that I've ever seen a better preseason from a Browns undrafted free agent. I don't think I have. Not just Browns, just in general. Of course, I'm not watching that many undrafted free agents from other teams in the preseason, but just one of the best preseasons I've ever seen from an undrafted free agent. This is a guy that has given the Browns no choice but to put him on the 53-man roster. You know, it started with the special teams plays against Carolina. I think he had like 3 stops like in the first half on special teams in that game, which, you know, that caught my attention. And that's when I was like, okay, this guy, you know, combine his athletic profile with the plays that he was making in that game, and you're like, okay, this guy could be very interesting. The next game continues to make plays on special teams, but then also gets a bit more of a role on defense and continues to make plays on defense. And then this week, again, making plays in special teams. He had 2 sacks in this game, 4 combined tackles, a forced fumble, was really good in defense, really good in special teams. And then the Browns did something that, you know, I and a couple of other people had floated around on social media the last couple of weeks when, you know, looking at his athletic profile, which is, why not put him at fullback? And they did it. Well, technically, I think they had him as the extra tight end rather than at fullback, but basically having him out there as a blocker. You know, this is a 6'1", 280-pound, absolute athletic specimen that, you know, I mentioned because of his athletic profile, you could use him on offense in terms of as a blocker. Fuck it, I would even hand the ball off to him as a fullback on goal line. I am so excited for Aiden Huntington. You know, there's always those cool stories, these undrafted free agents that can come in and, you know, really kind of take their opportunity and run with it. And this is someone that just has, and it continues to, you know, give credit to Andrew Berry, his ability to find these guys. I mean, the Browns will probably have 4 undrafted free agents make the roster this year. They've had multiple undrafted free agents make the roster, you know, throughout Andrew Berry's tenure here. You can say what you want about his draft picks. You know, I don't think that his draft picks are bad, but some people do. But there's one thing you can't argue, and that is that he is very, very good at bringing in these undrafted free agents. And, you know, that's why the Browns don't like having 7th round picks, because they like doing their work on these undrafted free agents towards the end of the draft. That's why, if they have the possibility to do so, they just get rid of these 7th round picks so they can spend that whole round while other teams are, you know, looking for a 7th round pick to take a flyer on. They can spend all of that time doing their work on the undrafted free agent class, and they continue to show why they are so good at it. The one concern on the defense is probably the special teams. I say probably, is definitely the special team. What am I talking about? The secondary. You know, the secondary depth has been a slight concern, shall we say. You know, after the Emerson injury, obviously Newsom's going to move to the outside. We wanted to see one of these young slot guys, you know, kind of take that opportunity and run with it. Cam Mitchell, if we're being honest, has not been great in preseason. He's been getting cooked a little bit out there in the plays that he's had. Miles Harden had a chance, and, you know, this game it was okay, but had a really bad drop on what should have been a pick 6, and, you know, not doing himself any favours. So, you I said a few weeks ago that I think Nick Needham will probably win this slot role, and I continue to think that's probably going to be the case. Someone that has played slot at a decent level in the NFL before. They initially had him at safety, which I can kind of understand with, some of that kind of question marks in that second safety role. But I think just put Nick Needham at slot corner, bring in a couple of depth pieces, and that's probably how they should go forward with the secondary. But the secondary's been the only kind of thing you can criticise from this defence. All camp, all preseason, and going forward. Special teams. Corey Bojorquez continues to show why he's the best punter in the NFL. Genuinely, Bojo bombs are one of my favourite things to watch. Am I a nerd because of that? Probably, but I don't care. Really, really encouraging to see, even in preseason, Bojo just continue to be one of the better punters in the NFL. But Dustin Hopkins is a concern. This is a legitimate concern. We've all been saying it all off-season. Like, he's not shown us enough to, make us feel better about his terrible year last year. And he just continues to, even when he makes kicks, they don't look great. They look like they barely make it. And then he missed another extra point again today. Schmidt, who actually made the game-winning field goal, he's made both of his kicks in preseason. To be honest, at this point, I would be happy with just getting rid of Hopkins and rolling with Schmidt. But I don't think they will, purely just because of the guarantees in Hopkins' contract. They probably will just have him this year, which I disagree with, because it could cost them games, but we'll have to wait and see to see if he can kick his way out of this. But he does continue to, of course, be a concern. Injury-wise in this game, we unfortunately got an injury early to Ethan Posic. Went down with a knee injury. He went into the medical tent. He was able to walk to the locker room on his own regard. Was able to put weight on that knee. So that is, of course, encouraging stuff to see. But we'll have to, of course, wait and see what the kind of outcome of that injury is. It just seems that every preseason now, one of our starting offensive linemen gets hurt. Normally it would probably be a bigger of a loss, but I think just because of how good Luke Whipple has been this training camp and this preseason, I don't think people were kind of like as concerned as they maybe would have been last year. But of course, Ethan Posic is the starting centre, and there's a reason why he's the starting centre. So hopefully this injury isn't too serious, and he can be back. If he's not back for week 1, can be back, pretty early on in the season. Blake Whiteheart injured his knee in this game. I think that probably might ruin his chances of making this team, of course, if that's serious. This was a guy that was probably battling for that third tight end spot with Sal Cannella. And Sal Cannella continued to, he had a few more catches in this game, continued to look pretty decent in the limited chances that he got. So unfortunate for Blake Whitehead. I think that, this injury, of course, if serious, has probably blown his chances of making the roster this year. And then Pierre Strong left the game with a concussion. Concussion, gone into the concussion protocol. Well, not even the concussion protocol. What do we even call it at this point? He was evaluated for a concussion. There we go. But we don't obviously know whether or not it was a concussion or not. Again, someone that would be a kind of bummer for him. He was quite good in this game, showed positive signs. Someone that is fighting for that last running back spot. So if he does have a concussion and has to miss the next couple of weeks, that could of course affect his chances of making the roster. But that was the game overall. Good stuff, encouraging stuff to see. Some stuff to obviously work on, but that's to go, as expected. Moving forwards, obviously, we are now week 0. On to Cincinnati. All eyes on Cincinnati. I expect the Browns to be active in the waiver wire. They have the second choice in the waiver wire. I expect them to probably be on the lookout for definitely corners, probably safeties as well, maybe even an offensive tackle, maybe even a tight end. I think they are going to be active. They're going to be a team that will be looking at, some of these roster cut-downs in the next few days and putting some claims in. And obviously before they cut down their roster to 53 players on Tuesday. Mary Kay also reported before this game that the Browns won't be trading Pickett. She seemed quite confident about it. So, whilst I expect, I've said all along, I expect there to be 4 on the initial 53-man roster. I think that has always been the case. But even with Mary Kay saying that, I do still think there's a chance that they trade Pickett, before week 1 if they get a good enough offer. But if not, it just shows you how much they wanted him to be the starter. This is a guy that I believed was going to be the starter, all those months ago when we did our first discussion about this quarterback battle. I was kind of in the camp that I think they want Kenny Pickett to be the starter, and I think that's kind of where I was at as well, just given Joe Flacco's age. At least with Kenny, if he does show you something, there is some long-term potential benefits there. But of course, with the way his off-season has gone, the way his training camp has gone with the injury and not being able to get the reps that he wanted, he lost that job to Flacco. Naturally, a lot of us thought, well, that means that he's gone, and let's just have these 2 rookies behind Flacco, because we need to evaluate both those guys. And if we do need to, if Flacco does, hopefully not get hurt or gets benched, then you'd rather it be those 2 rookies so you can evaluate them. But it looks like that might not be the case, so we'll have to wait and see and how that unfolds. But there's going to be a whole lot of news about, all of those stuff, all of those questions will get somewhat answered in the next week or so. Of course, going into next week with the roster cut down as well. But I'll be, of course, here talking about all of it. I'll be doing a roster prediction, planting my flag on, what the 53 guys I think will be on that roster come Tuesday at 9 o'clock UK time. I think 4 o'clock Eastern time over in the States. But as always, so much coming up, so much going on around the NFL, going on around the Browns. So make sure you hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. But again, Browns finished the year, the preseason, 3-0. I think this is the second time they've done that since, of course, the infamous 2017 season where they went 3-0 and lost all 16 games. So hopefully this year we get a few more wins than 0. But that would do it for me today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you do enjoy my content, then please drop this video a like, hit that subscribe button. It's free, but it really, really helps out my channel. You can also check the links in the description to see where you can follow and interact with me on social media. As I always say, I'm trying to build a community of Cleveland Browns fans, and even if that means I only get to talk to 1 fan a day, I'm happy because I'm talking Browns football with the best fan base in the world. Thanks again for watching, guys. Enjoy this win. Enjoy as we now look towards week 1. Get excited. The season is so close. But most importantly, go Browns.